Let me tell you a little bit about me as we get into this one. As we're getting together over these couple of weeks, it's important that we realize that sometimes we go through journeys that just take us in a whole different direction than we plan to go. And in it, we're going to need some things to get us through it. I went through this time period. A bunch of things were kind of colliding at the same time. I've owned businesses over the years. I've been involved in speaking and ministries and all kinds of things in my background. And there came this time period where a business needed to be sold because I was under some really financial pressure and some focuses had changed in my life. A relationship with two different guys that I was partnering with suddenly changed as well. Unconnected to that business, but some other guys. But one was actually an employer and the other was a guy that we were doing an event together. And as we were working on this together, my dad also was getting sick and on his way to dying. And I hit this kind of interesting time period in my life where my son stopped over, my second son, and stopped over one day and he asked me how I'm doing, and I said, I think I'm doing worse today than I've ever done in my life. And there has been a lot of things that have happened in our lifetime that shouldn't have made that to be that high a priority. But I think what it was there was this perfect storm. You ever have a perfect storm moment in your life where it just felt like everything was coming? And remember we talked about the 80-20 thing, and 80% of the time things are good and 20% they're bad? Well, it just seemed like everything at that moment was bad, and there was this uncertainty of what I was feeling. The uncertainty of what I was feeling was sort of like, man, I'm not sure where this is going to go. I'm not sure how it's going to go or why it's going to go. And I got to a place where I realized I'm going to lose my dad. My dad's going to die. And you understand that that's actually not as bad as it could be for some of you. But my dad's dying. This business isn't going to get straightened out, at least in the way I can see it. And the finances aren't going to work out. And the relationships that are kind of messed up right now all seem like it was about ready to explode. And had this amazing moment with God. Woke up one morning and God just basically said, you got to let the past go. It was as if suddenly in the midst of all the confusion of the world around me, God kind of stepped in a very personal encounter. And he said, I'm going to give you a new trail. I'm going to give you a trail that you're going to understand, that you're going to be able to step in. And that trail suddenly made the forest make sense to me. Now, sometimes I have to change the forest and what's going on, and sometimes I have to throw my rock in and change the flow of the water. But there are some days where what I need to do is find out where are the markers on the trail to move me through it. That's sort of what we want to talk about. That was a key day for me. Things actually changed. The trail suddenly became clear. I sort of knew where to go. Things started to make sense for me. And things began to rapidly change in the next few days and weeks that brought clarity. It was as if suddenly the trail that I couldn't see, I could suddenly see. Along the way, we went through this time period where I realized that the influencers of our lives, and we have influencers, 5 very key influencers in our life, can make all the difference. So we're going to walk through those 5 influencers in our lives that you just can't afford to ignore. Take your manuals and open it up to that fourth trail. And as we open it up there, let's look at the first principle that's there. What does a knight look for in today's world in order to discover his own personal quest? It's my story. What do I need to do to handle that personal quest? He must look on his journey, look for trail markers. Guys, you have to learn to look for trail markers within the forest. Now, trail markers are designed to be this thing that's going to guide you to know what steps to take. And there are trail markers in the forest. We're going to kind of go over them together. Within the forest, are important trail markers that can guide you. At times, these trail markers teach us how to bend our forest rather than becoming bent ourselves. Now, I'm going to tell you some of the things that these trail markers include. The first thing they include is a thing we call the tribe. The tribe, and I'll give you the definition here in a second, but the tribe is this thing that works around us in society to kind of give us clarity on a larger scale. Well, let's read the definition. It is a community comprised of a diverse group of individuals traveling through different stages of the forest experience, which can provide needed resources. Now, I'll be very honest with you. In my situation, the tribe wasn't in play, the one I just described for you. But this is one of those trail markers that has been in play at different times in my life and is need to be in play in all of our lives. Assume that this tribe is a healthy thing. It's going to take you in a positive direction. It's not a trail marker that's going to lead you into a difficult place. Yeah, I have to understand the power of the tribe. The tribe is something that's moving as a unit in a collective direction that you go, wow, I kind of get it, right? Do you remember right after Christmas in the year 2004, it was in Southeast Asia, and there was an earthquake out to sea, and a tsunami came rolling in the day after Christmas. A lot of you remember it. 250,000 people killed. Every coastal village that was in the wake of that tsunami was wiped out. Everyone. In the midst of that tsunami, with countless people dead and countless destruction that took place on the 26th of December, the year 2004, there was one group that everyone survived. They were called the Morgan Sea Gypsies. They're actually like fishermen who would go wherever the fish are at different seasons. So they live in the huts on the beach, and they kind of move around, and it's in that direction where they just kind of follow over, and they wherever the fish are, they go. Well, there had been a member of that tribe that every generation would explain to the rest of the people in the tribe that if you ever notice the water greatly receding quickly from the shore, know that it's going to return back with the same force that you see it leaving. So on that day, when everybody rushed out to get free fish that were flipping on the sands that had been suddenly vacated by receding waters, everybody ran towards the ocean except for the Morgan Sea Gypsies. Their tribe had told them over the years that when this takes place, run for the hills, and they all did, and the entire tribe survived. There's a movie that I love. It's called Master Commander, and it's a movie that involves a naval vessel for Britain about the same time as Napoleon was around. And there's a whole order on the ship. And you realize that these 197 sailors locked onto this area have become a tribe. And there's all kinds of rules and guidance. And you notice what happens when it breaks down. You know how important it is that they trust one another. They all do their jobs. That's part of what this is. It's sort of the collectiveness of us working and listening and learning together and trusting the master commander on that. It's been a long time since we talked about tribes because we don't do that very much in our culture. But I want you to start thinking about who is it collectively we're listening to? Who are the ones that you say, they're the ones that guide me in that direction? That is a key trail marker. Now, out of every tribe will rise up elders. That's the second one. Elders, these are the older men who by their very existence have learned some of the survival skills necessary for life in the forest. They're viewed as mentors. They pass on their knowledge, understanding, and wisdom for those who willingly listen. There's something about an elder. An elder is a guy that's a little bit older. Now, if you're 12, an elder can be 20, you know what I mean? So it's somebody that's older than you are. They've done some living, and so they have some insight into life. I went through this thing with a boss one time where I had done something that was very, very innocent. He had perceived it as not being innocent. He actually saw it as something that was, let's just say that I was going to run a coup, you know what I mean? And that perception, although innocent on my behalf, because of what was happening, looked like reality. And because of the situation, several weeks went by, and then I was called into his office, and we sat down and we talked, and he was pretty annoyed because everything looked like I was doing something that was not good for the whole, not good for the tribe. I had an immediate supervisor who was a man of real clarity, understanding, kind of a logical thinker guy, a very good mentor from the perspective of management principles and everything else. I never forget, as the boss was shooting in my direction, rightfully so if what he thought was true, I suddenly almost watched physically this guy come up out of his chair and stand in between me and the boss and take all the arrows. He said, if you're going to shoot at him, you got to shoot at me because what you're saying isn't true. And I remember thinking I was so grateful this guy was here. Now, to be honest with you, he wasn't older than I was. He just was an older manager than I was. He had dealt with management on some levels. And at that particular point, he functioned as an elder, one of great wisdom, who saw things differently than I did. Now, I don't know if you have guys like that in your life. I want you to stop for a second. Instead of listening to me, I want you to think about an elder in your life. Who's a guy that's older than you that you trust as a mentor? I will tell you that this guy, I trust with my life, man. He dove in front of me when all the arrows were coming, right? What about you? Do you have something like that in your life where you go, there's a guy that I trust, his wisdom is exceptional, he makes good decisions? Now, maybe the best thing to do is this. I want you to write a name down. It won't mean anything to anybody else, but I want you to write a name down. And then once you write it down, I'd like you to tell the guy next to you what the name is. Just tell the guy that's right with you, here's the name. Now, if it's him, then tell somebody else instead of that guy, because it's just probably will mess up with his head a little bit, and elders don't need to get proud, although it would be not bad for them to find out that was their name. But I want you to kind of just give the name to a guy next to you. Go ahead and do that for a second. Now, as you're doing that, all right, you're thinking of a name, you're saying this guy can make a difference. Can I tell you that probably somebody in the room maybe had your name down? Isn't that awesome? Or maybe somebody somewhere has your name down. It means that you're making an impact. That's our desire. That's what happens when you're making your own trail marker with other guys. We need elders. We need wise men who make good decisions, people around us. Let me give you the third one. Third trail marker is personal standards. By internalizing the instruction of the community and its elders, a lifestyle is chosen based on high standards. Principles are developed, leading the individual to develop ethics and follow moral codes. When I think of this one, I think of the fact that we remember the 15 principles we went over, and we said that you'll probably find more as you guys get together and your campfires will be talking, and you'll realize that there are more than those that you're dealing with. And as those principles get developed, it's funny how we get handed them down. I'll never forget my Christmas. I had to be probably 12. And we had one of those, we were not very wealthy family. We weren't bad off. We just would always kind of struggle. And I remember we were at Christmas morning, and we'd all open our gifts. And in our family, we'd open gifts one at a time. So we'd all watch the other one. And my dad opened a gift from a guy at work. Now, it wasn't a guy at work. It was actually a contractor that his company would deal with and all that. And he opened up this gift, and inside was a wallet. And inside the wallet were 3 crisp $100 bills. I had never seen, at the age of 12, a $100 bill, and there were 3 of them. Immediately, I thought, we are going to Disneyland, dude. This is the big stuff. My dad has just hit the jackpot. But my dad didn't seem to be very excited. My dad actually was looking around at my mom, and like he almost like this bad thing had just happened. And my dad said, this has to go back. And I go, whoa, nothing has to go back, man. We got $300. We're going to have a party. And he goes, no, this has to go back because the only way I can receive this is as a bribe. My dad at that particular point in his life was working 3 jobs to keep our family together. And here he is handed $300, and he says it has to go back. You know why? Because he had personal standards that said, that is a bribe, and I'm not going to live by it. That's a principle. Do you have principles like that? They'll mark your trails. They'll guide you through life. One of the exciting parts about that is we get to the place in our lives where we go, you know what? I have a tribe that's giving me a good sense of what's going on. I have some mentors in my life, and I have standards. Personal standards. Next one is a man's internal voice. This guidance system becomes increasingly more vital as a man understands his own personal calling, underlying calling, and integrates it into his daily activities. This is something that you're going to feel more than you're going to think about. This is what makes you unique. And it's a sense of, I need to do this. Have you ever had a sense that you just need to be cautious in a certain intersection, or a sense that I needed to be a little bit careful about something? You get that sense of that inner voice. What if that inner voice could impact the direction you would take a step in the forest? Not just caution in a moment, but how I can move forward and do something. What if that was what happened in your life? When that takes place, something really cool happens. We get to a place where we say, you know what? There's something happening that is not just big or mentored or even just some principles that I could have and you could have, but this is something very, very personal about me and what I'm supposed to do and where I'm supposed to move and how I'm supposed to impact. Don't be afraid of that voice. It's a great trail marker. It's one of those that will guide you through the forest that you'll learn to trust more as you get used to it, more as you get a sense of what it is. Now, I know it feels kind of mystical and strange when you hear about it, because we aren't that quiet as guys. We tend to do, and it's hard for us to even stop long enough to reflect and hear it. But when you learn to do it, it's very freeing. And out of it will come the last one. Spirituality. It offers a greater guidance by enabling each man, because of his relationship with God, to communicate with God daily. I was mentioning to you in the beginning about that moment where I had those big 3 all colliding with the business, my dad, and a couple of things going on with some other business partners. And as it was all colliding at that moment, I was kind of lost on what trail to take. When God spoke in that inner small voice within me, and I understood what direction to take in, it was actually rooted deeply in my spirituality. See, there's a vertical connection that I can have with God in a horizontal world. And it gives me a tremendous advantage to function as a knight, to know where to move, how to impact the force around me. When all of these come together and you got your tribe happening and you have your mentors happening and you have this whole idea of personal standards and a sense of your voice being called out within you as the direction you need to move in, and you have this vertical connection, you're going to find that the trail that you do life in works so much better. You're going to find that you know how to walk through the forest and navigate it. So not only when you navigate it, people want to follow, but you also know when to bend the forest this way or that way because of the marks that go there. So those are the essence, the beginning of what it's all about. So what is the forest? Let's make sure we understand together what the forest is. We defined this for you earlier, but let's write it down again. The forest is our word for life, including the culture, the world, and the environment as it surrounds and presents itself to each male. Now, I know you're saying, Keith, can't you just call it life? The problem is if I call it life, you and I all have previous definitions of it. So by calling it forest, I want you to think of it as something I can impact. Something I can do something. It's another rock you're going to have, and you're going to drop it into that river of this representation of what man's supposed to be, and you're going to drop it in to begin to think differently, because I can impact this. The whole idea of being an influencer as a man is that you have to be able to have impact. Without impact, there's no influence, right? So what happens is you stop and realize this is the thing that I can make a difference in. And you know what, guys? It's at work. It's in your local community, it's in your home, it's in your church, it's in your friendships. You and I can make a difference in so many levels. Now, what is the force? Another thing is it's man's ability to navigate through his personal force allows him not only to survive, but to also truly live out his manhood. And I love this part. This is the part that so energizes me. What if I could be a knight? That wherever I go, there's an impact in a positive way. Well, what if I could somehow or another get to a place where, like this trail behind me, this trail that exists here, that it's my trail, and other people say, I can go safely down that. What if I could do that? Wouldn't that be awesome? I think that's what we're talking about here. Not only will it help you navigate your manhood, your knighthood, and raise your level of influence and impact, but it will cause others to say, you know what, I can take that trail as well. You know what one of my prayers for my sons are? That they will grow beyond me. You know what's really cool? At their age, where they are right now, they've already grown beyond me in so many ways. My 19-year-old is miles ahead of where I was when I was 19. My 28-year-old is way ahead of me. There's something so cool about my guys growing beyond me, right? But you know what's really cool? I've cut some of the path that they're following. And others have cut the path that I'm on. It's the trail markers that work, right? So as we start to think about this trail, and we start to think about moving through the forest, what happens when we function at the highest level we can function at? Here you go. Look at Roman numeral 2. When the forest originally designed, how did man interact with it? What happened when the forest originally was designed for the world as we know it fell apart? I'm going to take you to a part in the Bible from the very beginning. It's when the world was created. It's in the second chapter of the book of Genesis. In your nightly news, you'll see a little column right there on your a little scroll on the bottom of your page there. And it introduces a character by the name of Adam. All right, now here's what we find out about this man. He lived in a more supportive forest. Let me describe it for you this way. When the world was created, there was no evil dominant in the world. There was one that was evil but had no control. So when God made the world, he said, okay, Adam, I want you to do something with this world. I want you to tend the forest. I want you to watch over the forest. In other words, I've given you this great thing. Go have fun with it. Do stuff with it. You can bend it. It's yours. You get involved with the animals. You get involved with the nature. It became his job, right? And it was kind of cool because it was receptive to him. It was not resistant. When he would go to bed, the forest would bend. It didn't try to stop him. The thorn bushes weren't there. The weeds weren't there. I mean, nothing was happening in the curse world because of where Adam is. So the forest is much more receptive when it was originally designed. That's actually encouraging because when you understand that it was that way, it enables you to live life a little bit differently. Look at this. Man was sufficient to lead and develop the forest. That's such a cool thing. That from the beginning, the forest was movable. And from the beginning, Adam was able to move it. That's so cool. You're able to lead it. Now, I want to encourage you guys that if you ever sit there and just feel like, Nobody ever follow me. What good am I? And I'm not very good at stuff. I have walked through so many times like that in my life. I've been around guys that are such strong leaders and have accomplished so much, and I'm floundering just to, get two-color socks on that match, And this guy, so I watch, I can never be that guy. Well, let me encourage you guys. Yeah, you were designed to be a leader. You were designed to impact the forest. When I say 5 influencers of the forest, guys, that's you. That's me. And we can get very much involved in that process. Let me show you another one. The forest was originally designed, and how did man interact with it? Man was to control the outcome of the forest. You know what's really cool? Adam named the animals. He has to name all the animals. He's actually changing its outcome. Now, that must have been a fun job. There's a reason why he's naming the animals, because it's not good that he be alone, and he has to find out that none of them are for him. So he's checking out all the animals. He's naming them. He's, I don't know what to call you. Striped horse, that's a stinking name. How about zebra? And he was naming everything, but he's also checking them out to see if maybe in there, somebody among those animals, because they're all in pairs, are with him, And so the giraffes, they're necking, and the orangutan, she's picking his nose, and all that stuff's going on, and he's figuring there's none of them. He thought about the alligator, the hickey would kill you. The whole thing was out. He was just watching all this. But you know what he's doing? He's influencing the forest. He's having a chance to impact it. As he has this amazing opportunity to make a difference, not only do we get the lead, but it says that Adam had this opportunity to control the outcome of what was going on in the forest. We're going to lose that opportunity because of something that will happen in the next chapter. But remember this idea. D, man had greater influence over the forest effects on him. If I could influence the outcome of the forest, then the forest was directing me less. Isn't that hopeful? Did you ever just kind of felt like you were swept along when you're in high school? Didn't you feel like you just had to go and go to school every day, and you didn't have much choice about it? And maybe you even felt that way about college, or with your job, or you just don't want to do it every day, but you have to keep going and have to pay the bills, and life has just become this drudgery of just doing, saying yes and accomplishing, and you just feel like it's not working, like the force is controlling you. Well, I have great news that there was a time when we influenced the forest didn't influence us. As a matter of fact, the forest was working in conjunction with us, right? That's what was happening early on. One more thing about that you need to understand is that God intended it to be that way. He did. God intended it to be that way. And then something happened. Look at Roman numeral 3. When the forest started controlling man instead of man controlling it, when did that happen? It happened the moment the spandex male chose self-direction over God's direction. That's a hard one for me, because I choose that. There's enough you'll discover about me over a period of time that there's a lot of these parts that I would never want you to see a video of my life, because of stupid choices. And Adam is in this garden where he can influence, and he gets to set the trail in the forest, right? It's about him and doing what God designed him to do. And God said, you can have anything except for this one thing, because God said, I want you to choose to love me, and I don't want you to be forced to. And he says, you can't have this one tree. And Adam chooses the tree. He just picks the tree. He says, I want what I want. I want it to be about me, and I choose it. My spandex male side chooses it instead of choosing great influencers and God of the universe. And everything changes. Watch what changes. It's all found here. A, the forest is now cursed, not blessed. Do you ever wonder when Murphy's Law began? The law says if anything could go wrong, will go wrong. Do you wonder when that started? It started right on that day, when Adam said, hey, I choose to take care of myself versus what I was designed to take care of. I chose not to be what God had in mind, but I choose self-direction over God's direction. Look at the second thing that happens. A fulfilling job of growth in the forest became a difficult task of survival. All of a sudden, guys, instead of us growing, we're now trying to survive. And I think that's the problem for us as guys. That's where we feel trapped. I want you to know that if you're sitting here at week 4 with me, and you've gone this far, you're saying, I don't want to live that way anymore. I don't want to be trapped. I want to do something. I want to have life that has significance. But the force has been kind of dictating it to us, and we're just in survival mode. Remember when I described to you earlier the struggle that I had with the boss and my dad and all that? trust me, I was definitely in survival mode. The problem with survival mode is that breathing is hard, and living doesn't seem like there's anything full. Every once in a while, Lynn and I will just go away for a weekend. We'll just kind of find this really romantic place and go away and just kind of shut ourselves up. We had a trip not too long ago where we just got snowed into this marvelous place with hot tubs and all that stuff, and it was just great. You know why we do that? Because sometimes I just gotta not just survive, I gotta grow and love, right? But the forest doesn't seem to lend itself to that very often for most of us. It just kind of beats on us and wears us out. That's all because we said, hey, I choose to be self-directed instead of God-directed. Look at the next one. What flourishes in the forest is not always good or ideal. When you and I are at that place where we have to understand what's going on around us, we sometimes have to stop for a few minutes and realize that the world in which I live is not the perfect ideal world. Everything's gotten cursed now. Everything's messed up. And so that lack of ideal world will help you understand that, you know what, it's not just survival I'm trying to do, but I'm trying to realize that the ideal, the things I thought were going to happen in my perfect little world is going to get shaken. When we understand that, it frees us up a little bit, guys, to understand, okay, here's how I have to approach the forest and approach it very, very differently. Let's look at the next point. Next one is D. The forest continually fights man's effort to tame it. It's not trying to follow us at all. It's fighting us. Did you ever have a day where your mate runs out of gas, so you didn't have time anyway, but you get in your car and you drive, and on the way you run out of gas? If you're both that way, one of you shouldn't be married to the other one because it gets really scary. I had a boss like that one time. But isn't it like everything starts to go wrong? It's where this tumble effect, the Murphy Law effect, and we feel like, you know what? I can't stop this. And now all of a sudden it's just driving me, and life has lost its fullness and its joy. Guys, I honestly believe that we are here to say, no more. I don't want to do that. I want to live differently. And I believe it's possible, even in a fallen world, even where the forest fights against us, to start to set a path, both to us to follow and others to follow. Watch, it goes this way. Not only is it we're having trouble with this forest and how it's hard to tame, we lose our way and thus our manhood. Males have lost their way and lost the sense of what their manhood is. Right? Remember if I asked you, I gave you a definition a couple of weeks ago, but if I asked you what's your definition of manhood, what would it be to be a knight? I tell you, 10 years ago I would have had no idea what to write down. Now I'll say, to reject passivity, accept responsibility, lead courageously, and live for God's reward, off of what was written from Men's Fraternity and Robert Lewis. But that's a good idea to know what that is, but most of us, man, we don't have any idea. We've lost a sense of who we are as a man. In fact, we let the culture tell us. We let the forest tell us what we are. As a result of that, man, we're lost in the middle of the woods with no way of sense of where we need to go and how we need to get there and what it would be like if we were to be free. We can't tame it. It's making us feel lost. Look at F. It happens the moment the spandex male chooses self-direction over God's direction. Because of this, men lost their ability to understand the forest. We had to change the name. We couldn't even call it culture. We couldn't even call it life. We had to give you a new stone to carry just because we don't have any idea as guys what to do with this thing. We don't know what to call it, how to handle it. It just overwhelms us. And guys, we're going to hand you a rock and let you drop it into the stream and let you change the course so you can move forward with some freedom. But it's going to require that we realize that, man, we have just been so lost in this world. Look at G. Men become increasingly more influenced by the forest. You know what men are called today? Boys. They are. By women. They're called jerks. Matter of fact, they're called all kinds of things, from pejorative names to hunky names, but very few are being called knights. You know why? We've lost our way. The forest has so dominated how we are and so influenced us that we're not bending anything. It's just bending us. Guys, did you ever wake up one morning and say, that's enough, stop it? I have. I had that experience not too long ago when all those things were colliding. And in the middle of it, one of the trail markers began to guide me out. Now, what do we do with this? How do we break away from what happened at the fall, and how do we get somewhere else? Look at Roman numeral number 4. In order to be a knight that influences a spandex male-dominated forest, you must, and this is so cool, learn to increase your understanding of the trail markers that can point you towards maturity. Learn to have an understanding of these trail markers. Get to know what the 5 of them are. Start to be able to name, what are the tribes in my life? I have some mentors in my life. I have 4 guys that I go to all the time. One of them is Roy Smith, who helped write this material. He's one of the guys that's a mentor in my life. They're my elders. Roy's much, much older than I am. And so in that process, we go through this understanding of, he guides so often in my life. Lynn's dad is dead, and my dad's dead, and actually both of them probably weren't mentors, but we've lost that. But I have other guys in my life that are doing life with me, at least at my age, if not older, and helping me through it. But I also have a tribe. You know what's interesting? I've had the opportunity in the last few years to be with 5,000 men that have done this material together. They're my tribe. They're my tribe because I watch how they're influencing things. I got a guy right now who is handling his wife in an affair on a level that would blow you out of the water. Blowing her out of the water. She doesn't know what to do with it. She hasn't broken it off yet, but she's questioning everything. You don't want to know why? Because this guy has lived with his tribe and had elders influencing and changed his personal standards, and pretty soon his voice has been so altered that she isn't sure what to do with it because he's become a spiritual man. These are the things that you and I need to learn to do. We need to let these issues of the influencers of our life guide us. Let me give you another one. You're going to learn to check your standards in light of the true principles. I believe that most of us as guys are lied to. I mean, we believe lies all the time about ourselves. We got to check our standards. We got to check our standards not against the moral climate around us that's rushing by and doing so much destruction. We got to check our standards to say, all right, is this true? Is this right? Can I put my weight on this? Is what I'm about to do something that makes a difference? My sons know exactly what our home standards are. I didn't always know what they were, but they know now. I know what they are because those are standards that have been given pretty clearly over a period of time. Very much like the 15 principles we gave you, with some other ones added in. Knowing what those are. There's something else we need to know. Not only your personal standards, but look at C. Find your unique voice and develop your spirituality in order to see above the forest. I love this one. I guess all of these do so much for me. One of them is, guys, find out what makes you unique. You're going to get together with a group of guys each week after we're done these sessions in what we call campfires, right? A group of guys gather around, sitting around a campfire, talking about life, talking about tribes, talking about elders, talking about standards, talking about how we're doing life. Sometimes you're going to have to find your own voice in the middle of that. Who you are is unique. It's one of the coolest parts about it. Apparently they need your uniqueness. Don't back off. They need it involved in your life. And what happens is when you let this start to take place, you let this start to flow, some things begin to change in some dramatic ways. Let me show you the last principle. Commit to the quest of bending the forest and being a trail guide for others. That's when you stop being a spandex male and when you started being the man you were designed to be. This is what makes me realize that that's when I come alive. When I realize that I can set this trail. I can do this. Not in my own power, my own strength. Without God, there's so many things that are going to get messed up. I'm going to need a vertical to go with the horizontal, but I can become an influencer. So when we get done here, and I know your schedules are tight and you want to keep going, but if you could spend time with your campfire group, your group for half an hour, just talk through this stuff, it'll go so far. I want you to discover each other. That's sort of your elders, sort of your tribe, and sort of help you put some standards together and discover your voice. In fact, I want you to imagine it like this. Everybody in that group is important. So let's say there's 8 guys. Imagine you have one pie with 8 slices on it. Each one of you is responsible to consume your slice of the pie in that meeting. And that means you talk, you share a part of you. So 1 out of 8 of you. Now, don't eat half the pie and the other 7 guys sitting there trying to fight for 4 pieces. Each of you take a slice and share your stories. Share what's going on. Share the journey, because you'll discover that in that you're going to start to understand how to do life. I think it's with your campfire that you'll discover this. As your trail markers guide you, you'll see that the water is suddenly receded very, very quickly in society, and it looks like all kinds of opportunities, and you want to run after it like everybody else, because there's just things flopping there for you to take. And somebody in your group says, the faster they recede, the faster they come back. Run for the hills. I believe that getting together with the guys in your campfire will not only make this stuff personal, but it'll cause you to do life on such a level that you become an influencer and can live for another storm and another day. Gentlemen, where we are right here at this place is this ability to call out and say, we can change the forest. I believe it. Join me with it. We'll get together next week and talk about how you protect yourself in that. Look forward to seeing you then. Thanks.